Hi folks, I'm Alan James. I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of adventure and creativity through the series Color in Your Life. Together, we will travel the East Coast from Maine to Florida on our quest to discover new artists along the way. So invite your friends and family and see how some of the best artists in America will put some color in your life. Hi folks, welcome to another edition of Color in Your Life. I'm host Alan James. Today we landed in the quintessential New England town of Stonington. It's located in the southeast corner of Connecticut on the banks of Long Island Sound. Now we'll spend the day with an extraordinary man and a gifted artist named Howard Park. But as you'll soon find out, he's not just an ordinary artist, folks. So I'm very excited about this show and I think we're going to have a great one. So what do you say you come on inside, we spend the day with Howard Park and watch him put some color in your life. So here we are in Howard Park Studio in Stonington, Connecticut, in an old historic building called, I think it's called the Velvet Mill, is that right?
That's correct, Alan. The American Velvet Mill was established in the 1890s when the borough of Stonington gave land to the Windheimer brothers to bring their velvet production up here in the hopes of producing some industry for the residents of the borough.
Well, that's interesting, So, another thing, you're a man of many accomplishments. After reading your bio, I was like, this is a Renaissance man. So, some of the things you've done before, you're a photographer, an artist, a teacher, and you have workshops all over the place. But the thing that most intrigued me, I think, was the journey that you embarked on, circumnavigating the planet on a boat that you restored all by yourself. And I'd like to know, I can't wait to hear that story.
Well, it can be long. It can be a long story, but in short, it was a boat that I found in disrepair down in the Chesapeake, and I brought it back to Connecticut, sailed it back, as a matter of fact, engineless, and found it to be a really terrific boat. So it was worth spending the 3 years that I did restoring the parts that I restored, and in time knowing full well that I was going to circumnavigate, having wanted to do that since I was 12 years old.
Wow.
So it's been a dream of mine that came true.
Oh, that's great. So we're going to talk about some of the other accolades that you've done, the things that you accomplished during the painting. And but speaking of the painting, this is a reference painting that I think you said you're going to use.
Correct.
Tell me, where is this located?
This is right here in Stonington Meadows. It's part of an old salt acre farm, it was called. And so there's a tidal area that's marshy and has a little tidal river that goes through. And this is part of this area up here is part of the old farm, one of the hay fields. So I paint that plein air. I'm primarily a plein air painter. So I'm going to take an area of this and really reposition a few things, perhaps, fix the composition, take the little bits that I really like, using those colors that I picked up while I was actually out there.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, as usual, I'm going to step out a shot and let Howard do his thing. Are you ready to go?
I'm all set to go.
Let's rock and roll.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Howard, looks like you're ready to go with your paints out.
Absolutely, and as I said earlier, I'm going to use part of that painting to do my new composition and zoom in on a bit of it that I think is interesting. Now, I paint with a limited palette, and as you can see, I use a black, a red, a yellow, a blue. And this Viridian green. So I don't use that to make greens. I use yellow and black to make greens, and it has to be an ivory black, which is a transparent black. It's a wonderful color. Okay, so I'm going to carry on here. I've got a bit of a sketch that's going to help me figure out what I want to do. Diagonals are always a fun thing to do, and if I bring a diagonal across like this, that's going to help divide that canvas, that large part of the canvas, in such a way that it'll make it more interesting. And I'm going to think about coming back this way a bit, and I'm going to have one of my main points of interest here. I can create this, I'm going to call this a steelyard composition, where I have a large mass but counterbalanced by a slightly smaller mass.
Excellent, excellent. And I see as a youngster you were influenced by some of the California Impressionists, Edgar Payne.
Absolutely. I'm originally a Californian, and don't hold that against me, but at any rate, my grandfather had some of those early California Impressionists before they were really terribly popular. Edgar Payne is influential. Not only did I see that hanging on my grandfather's walls, but I also learned a lot about his ideas of composition, his broken brushwork, and broken color one next to the other.
And so you went to school in France, I see.
I did. I was very lucky. I went to l'École d'Art Décoratif de Nice.
I see. And speaking of teaching, it looks like you've done some workshops over at Fisher's Island, the center over there.
That's a wonderful venue. The people are very receptive to what we do, and they are a variety of backgrounds and interests and abilities. So that's a wonderful venue for us to teach there. We do the line and water there. We do stick and ink. We do a variety of mediums that make a large group of people pretty happy. So I think now, I'm going to darken that up a bit, but I think now I have kind of a set of where I want all the main parts of this to go. The vibrating colors, one against the other, come in just right. It's really, I hate to say it's a simple way to do it, but it really is a very easy way to paint. You look at some of Van Gogh's, the last marks he made in his paintings, and you'll see that he put some darks on at the very end. So this is my source of light. I've established that, and now I've got to find what I'm going to do for my darks. So what I've done is I've introduced a bit of purple into this green, and we'll see how that comes up as a shadow, faraway shadow. Oh, that's going to be just great. So some of your underpainting can stay in place and let that come through. That's fine. You can indicate a lot of stuff happening that way. And what I have in front now, this tree being here, I want to be careful about not having that dark here necessarily. So I've got a sense that there's some lights and darks happening. I can kind of keep this light, so this will jump against it, and I'll come back here, and even though my light source is coming from here, what happens to these trees in the background is they go in these different angles like that. So some of them actually get light on them, some of them don't. That would be behind that set of trees, you see. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward way of doing it.
Constantly thinking about the light.
That's right. The whole time you think about that light. That's so vitally important to building a painting that has some credibility to it. So here's some darks like this. And what I'll do at some point here is introduce some of the other colors that were typical of that day. So there were some russes, there were some oranges. This year was not a real great year for color. It was too dry, and so a lot of the leaves stayed in their brown state, or certainly a less interesting set of colors.
You'll have to visit me in Deep River. We got some good color over there.
Oh, great.
So tell me about the underpainting, the brown that you put down first, and then you're going over it now with green. What's the purpose of that, doing the underpainting?
Well, that underpainting will establish the values that I need. And I can actually, if I want to keep a certain value, so if I squint at this, if I want to keep a certain value, I can keep mixing a color, squint at it so the hue itself doesn't show, but the value of it does. And if I want to keep that value, it's so easy for me to do that. You see how that goes? Yeah. Right there. And that's why you see me wiping it away, and you see me playing with it in a variety of different ways before I actually start putting some of the final hues on. So these are all going to be the local colors, and every once in a while you'll come up with some little mark, some little thing that looks really interesting. that's fine. You want to think about it. You want to think about saving it and about using it, but don't save it at the cost of some other marks or some other portion of the painting. So I'm still looking to tint out my colors, but I'm putting a touch of sky color in them. So as most colors recede, they get a little bluer. So they lose their chroma, so they get tinted out, and they get a little bluer. That's the majority of the colors, and that's kind of a rule of thumb, but you don't want to be so locked into that you can't do something else. But in this case, I've taken some sky color, and then that lightens that up, gives me a different sense, and reminds me of some of the shapes that I want to keep that I had in my initial block-in. And I don't mind if some of that block-in comes shining through. If the value should be correct, and it'll add a little bit of dimension to the painting itself. You want that vibrating colors. You want these colors all moving against each other. I mean, a great example of that. What if I just took a touch of this lavender? I made up several different purples here, basically. One with cerulean and one with ultramarine and quinacridone red. But if I just took this touch of lavender, let's say I just put something like that in here, you can see how that vibrates against those greens. And in so doing, it's going to make some interesting little marks. That's not going to stay there. I'm not worried about laying it on there right now, but you can see how that makes for this vibrating. Your eye will vibrate between those colors. And some of this is just for me. If it doesn't even stay in the painting, it doesn't matter. It's under there. It's kind of the history of the piece.
I like the vibration between it's sort of an antagonistic, isn't it?
Well, in a way, that's right. That's right. And you can make that as strong or as easy as you want that to be. I've got to work something out there. I kind of like the shape that's there, but I don't want to leave that dip so close to this. So I'm going to find some warm, nice warm color I can put here, still tinted out. It's not that strong, but it'll help with indicating maybe some other tree, a different type of tree, a different sense of what's happening. Then a little darker here. And all the time I'm thinking about drawing and redrawing, and I'm still using a moderately sized knife.
So is that like negative shaping you're doing there?
Exactly. You bring those negative shapes into play. I am thinking very much about not leaving halos between the sky and this tree line, because in all honesty, if that's left there, it'll come back and haunt you. There's no question that you'll find yourself someplace near the end of the painting and you don't have any of your sky color left in the puddle you made up for your sky, and now you've got to come up with something to work into those areas. So get rid of those right away. Doesn't matter. You push that paint back and forth all you want. It's always going to be there. You'll always be able to find what it is that you want, but get rid of those halos. That's pretty important. Break that up a little bit. Not too detailed. Even though your eye might see those leaves way back in the background, your eye's sending thousands of messages to your brain in a nanosecond. And so you can see that when you're focused there, but what are you going to do if you make the leaves on the trees? What are you going to do when you get to the foreground? You're going to be putting the ants in the painting, you know what I'm saying?
This reminds me of another landscape painting you did that I really like called Monhegan.
Monhegan, that painting is of a hillside on Monhegan. You've got a fairly nice water view. It shows a bit of a path going up the side. These places, Monhegan Island, is a painter's paradise.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Tell me about that painting, Striped Bass Fishing. That's a cool one.
That's a really fun painting. I like that painting because it shows one of the Mackenzie Cuttyhunk, actually, that was boat designed out there on the island, and they would take their swells out. These were local guys that would take out the wealthy New Yorkers or Bostonians that came to fish off the island. It was a great striped bass fishery there. Still exists, but over the years some of that has deteriorated, only just because the fishery has been off. But now we're just going to find some of these areas, and how can I highlight some of these areas without detracting from that main entry into the whole of the painting.
Here's an interesting painting of yours called Barn Island. Tell me about that one.
Well, Barn Island was done on this same format, done plein air, and it was a blustery day. There were some fellows crabbing there, and so I used those, introduced those figures. It was kind of one of my, if you want to call it a day off. Lisa and I had been teaching a lot, and we thought, I just want to go someplace, just relax. I just want to paint for myself. So we found the time to do that, and that really gave us the opportunity to pull that painting together. It has reflections in it, it has light in it, it has a great light source, and I really made an attempt to make that feel as if the wind was still blowing across, a little bit of light. There was a cloudy sky moving back and forth, and I think that was part of the incentive for that painting. It's a fun painting. It's a bit of a hike getting out there. Now look at that. If you measured that, that would be exactly in the center. We don't want that there.
No.
You want to take that out for me?
I wouldn't know what to do with that day.
But you would suggest that I get rid of it. And so would I. So that was kind of a haphazard mark. And now I can make that blend in. There's still some warmth there, still a sense that there's some light that hit there, but it's not so powerful that the viewer is going to have his eye go to it. So now I'm just working these out. Very neutral colors. Finding places where I can introduce those colors, highlight some of the pieces that I want to have come forward. But you see how I'm really just pushing this paint around. Well, I'm feeling pretty comfortable where I am here. I'm not sure how much more I want to pull into this and where I want to. See, I'm tempted now to put in bits and pieces of trees. You know, somebody stop me. Right? I mean, that's what you're thinking about all the time. You're always telling that to your students, right? No, step away from the painting.
Yeah, you got to talk to yourself.
Good for you. Yeah, if you can make yourself do that, and it's vitally important to do that. So now I'm softening some of these edges. You can do that with a knife very easily. Just you scrub them in a little, and that gives us a little bit of a broken top there.
How long will this painting take to dry so that you can maybe display it?
It'll be a couple of weeks drying. Not unusually long time, but the cold wax areas will dry fairly quickly. Today I was using oil that has some dryer in it, and that was from Winsor Newton, and so that'll help it speed up the drying process. You don't want to be too oily on top of something that has a heavy passage of paint, because if it dries, a misnomer. It actually gets hard. Oil gets hard. It doesn't dry. It doesn't evaporate, so it gets hard. So if it hardens before the underbit does, you can get a lot of cracking.
I see.
So you want to find that viscosity that works for you, that has a combination of oil and that cold wax in it.
I see.
So I think a little bit of dark. We'll take a chance, pull up a couple of different colors, and see if we can't make something interesting right here. Same value, same color. I'm going to take that out. I want something that has a bit of dark to it. So now I'll introduce a touch of blue. Much better.
So you're putting your darkest darks in now?
Well, they should have been there from the beginning, but I found that there was just something lacking right here. So what I'm doing now is I am introducing a cool dark here, and I think that will help
So you can actually do that in oil if you need to.
Absolutely. Van Gogh did it. I figure I can.
Why not? You sold one painting.
Why not? He sold one, that's right. I sold two? No.
Here's another painting I'm interested in talking about, Silver Eel Cove.
Silver Eel Cove was, that's one of my favorite paintings. That painting did the thing about it that I like so much is that I went out and did a sketch. It was overcast, just a little rainy. I went out and did some sketches, and Lisa and I were both out there teaching on Fisher's Island. That's Silver Eel Cove, where the ferry comes in. There are a bunch of fellows fishing on the dock. So we did a bunch of drawings, and when we went back into the studio, we painted those paintings and finished them off. And so that painting is a studio painting, but originated in plein air.
Okay, very good. This thing is coming together nicely now.
Well, I want to be careful that I don't have something that's so dark that it pulls away from some of the other places. So I'm breaking it up a little, just by pushing that paint around. And it gives it a sense that there's all that broken marks down there. Here, there's a few things in front, some in back. A little light hitting across. Always thinking about that. And these darks here can actually be a little stronger. I'm going to come in, and I'm not even going to go to a smaller knife because I don't dare do it, to be quite honest. But I want to have a sense that there's something behind these. You see how that happens? So just by adding that dark, that pushes this forward, and these darks indicate that there's something behind it.
Yes, I can see that. Looks great.
Well, I think I'm pretty much where I want to be with this. I'm going to stop right here.
Okay, well that was great.
Thank you.
So we had a great day today watching you paint. This is a masterpiece for me. I want this on my wall.
Well, thank you.
So thank you for spending time with me today on the show. But I want to ask if a viewer wants to find your work, where can they find it? What's your website?
Well, the first thing is the website, which is howardparkart.com. And on that, you can find a variety of paintings, from watercolor to oil paintings. I do hang in a variety of galleries, local galleries mostly, so that there's Avondale Arts, there's Louisa Gould Gallery on Martha's Vineyard, the Jean Arnold Gallery in Marblehead, local place. And these are all great people. They're really, they've got to be to take me in there, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. And if someone wants to join your in plein air classes, how can they get in contact with you?
They can contact me through oilandwaterpleinair@gmail.com.
All right, so we'll give that a plug. So it's time for us to say goodbye. But before we go, folks, I'd just like to remind you all to make sure you put some color in your life.